I went to college straight out of high school, first generation with a gambling addicted father who squashed my chance at an unbelievable scholarship after I was so proud of all I'd learned and goals I'd set forth in Upward Bound and Gear Up. I made great grades and I loved it, but at 9 months pregnant over Christmas break, I was scared to go back. I grew up in poverty. It's all I've ever known last year in 2022, 10 years after my first try. I re enrolled in college and applied for FAFSA. I'm making great grades, working a full time job now with the 7 children I have. I am 73 credits in with a 3.63 GPA. I'm an interlocal teacher's assistant right now, also taking the furthering education options that are available to me there for certificates. I'm just asking for a chance. $1,000 a month is what I'm making right now at the only Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You have to raise 7 kids. I can succeed. Just don't slam me with those bills if you don't have to. I can't pay the ones I have now, but I'm working as hard as possible to fix that. Just let me make it for my kids to have a chance. 7 of them watching mama. Happy Wednesday morning, you guys. Yes, it's Tuesday evening that I'm recording this, but I am uploading. I've changed it pretty much to 7 a.m. So that way people getting ready for work can actually watch this. Now, I think it's important that we step away from people, who like create videos and they create TikToks, YouTube channels and stuff to discuss their student loan. There's a whole world that we've not heard from. And these are the people, just your everyday people that aren't, social media addicted, or they're not, they love to create content like I do and stuff. These are just people who are they've written into the Student Debt Crisis Center, abbreviated for SDCC, and the link is in the description box. Okay, but these are just everyday people writing in, trying to find a voice to listen to them. And I think it's important that we hear them. So I'm going to try this and see if it goes well on this channel, this style, which is where we're going to be looking at different student loan stories, just from what I like to call everyday mom and pop. I'm everyday mom and pop. Okay. But I do have a social media channel outlet. Okay. But you have a lot of people that choose not to be on social media, but it's important that we don't dismiss and ignore their stories also. So in other words, it's not just the people who, talk and chit and chat on social media that get heard. So hopefully this goes real well. And if it does, I will do more like this. So let's take a look at this first story here, okay, that we just read. 7 children out of high school raised into a gambling addicted father. It really seems a crime that for people to get ahead, for the poor to get ahead, they have to get themselves into a debt they can't afford. And in other words, she says her student loan is $1,000 a month. Okay, excuse me. She's making $1,000 a month. She goes, I'm just asking for a chance. $1,000 a month is what I'm making right now. And I can tell you that being in education, being teacher assistant or anything like that, it's not going to pay very much. And what's really sad is she's gone to school and she's got, as she said, 7 kids watching mama. But what they're watching is that her education, the cost of it is going to sink her. People, I have no answers on how to fix it. Well, I told you the best way I could come up with it, okay? A few videos back. And I said, look, we got to start getting companies to start helping the impoverished. And again, let me make this very clear. It's for people who have the academic drive, the academic level of aptitude. Okay, I don't like to say intelligence because we can all be intelligent in different areas. I ain't no car mechanic, but trust me, somebody is, and they're really intelligent at it. So I like to refrain from saying the intelligent people go to college. No, the people who understand academia go to college. You speak it, you walk it, talk it, you understand it. Academia is its own language. People who know how to be car mechanics, okay, know how, you know what I mean? So I don't like to say it's the intelligent people, because there are lots of people in other areas that could kick my butt, technically on what they have to do and even financially, and they are not necessarily college material themselves. Okay. But that's the only way I can see how poor people are going to be able to go to school now more than ever with the big, beautiful bill. Okay. Trump's passing of that. I don't have any other answers on how to get poor people through college. She says here she's 73 credits in with a 3.6 GPA. So this woman is clearly motivated. And again, she has 7 children, but she says it's an interlocal. I don't know really what that means, but I do understand teacher's assistant. Do not go to school just to become a teacher's assistant. Let's get this very clear here, okay? So I'm in my 20th year being a classroom teacher, okay? Not if you're going to take on a lot of debt. If you are going to take on debt to be an educator, guys, you got to go for the degree, and then you need to go for PSLF, okay, public service loan forgiveness, so you can get it. What is it? Forgiven. So this is very unfortunate. Trying to raise 7 kids. It sounds like possibly she's doing it by herself. And she says, don't slam me with those bills if you don't have to. Guess what, folks? We have to. Not meaning me or you, the government. The government has to do it because we have to remember that education here is bought and sold by corporations. Always remember, your university is a big old advertising banner, okay? It's a corporation. Yeah, it's considered, some of them are considered nonprofit and all that stuff, yada, yada, okay? And they're filthy rich, absolutely filthy rich. All right, so that's story one. Let's continue on to next stories. I'm just going to keep this really informal. Like I said, throw in the comments if you like hearing these type of stories. Okay, I think in some ways it's almost a breath of fresh air because we need to hear from people, like I said, who don't spend their time on social media, but they have a story to tell, and I really think they need to be heard. Okay, let's go on here to the next one. This is from August 1st, 2023. Today, I am writing on behalf of my husband and myself, and I'm assuming many parents who took out Parent Plus loans as a way of assisting their children to college. Sadly, at the same time we made this commitment, no one knew a tragic pandemic would sweep the country and wreak havoc on many people's lives. My husband, who had worked for several years as a director of okay, philanthropy, was laid off without notice or severance in May 2020. After a handful of interviews and approximately 14 months, he was offered a job paying 1/3 of his former income. Yesterday, my husband and I spent the better part of the day reviewing our account with Nelnet advisor, trying to figure out where things would stand in October. Unfortunately, the answers were very little comfort to us. Now, let's make sure we're following here, okay? They have a Parent Plus loan. They took it out just before the pandemic, okay? Our situation is that our loan balance for our 2 children is in excess of $300,000. The only income driven repayment plan that was recommended to us is the income contingent plan. The advisor was knowledgeable enough to run our numbers and advise us that even after consolidating the first required step, our monthly payment would be even higher than the extended graduate payment plan, our current plan of choice. And as a side note, I believe that plan does not exist anymore, or it's been whittled down. Remember, big beautiful bill. This was written in 2023. Okay, they have $300,000 in Parent Plus. Other solutions recommended to us would be to take out a second mortgage, which would be a financial burden with today's interest rates. Hit our retirement funds, which have already suffered a huge hit while my husband was unemployed, cashing out a small insurance policy to offset some of the monthly expenses, taking my Social Security benefits early, which would do more harm than good. And finally, changing our tax filing status to married filing separately, which would cause us to incur a larger tax bill. Okay. Guys, you cannot love your children so much that you take out a $300,000 student loan and sink yourself in the future. Because what's going to wind up happening, you're either going to be forced to work until the day you die under whatever medical conditions you may be under, high blood pressure, heart, replacement surgery, extreme arthritis, okay, diabetes, God forbid, cancer, and any other diseases. You are forcing your children ultimately to take care of you because you cannot take care of yourself because you put them through college. I'm not a parent, and I've said this many times, but guys, I'm 20. I'm in my 20th year of education. So I think I've earned some room to be able to say I understand college pretty well and how it works. Okay. I've helped write applications for people to get into college, letters of recommendation. I got my pulse on what's going on. I have to, especially if I'm going to run this channel, right? Here's the thing. $300,000. And basically what this article is showing us, this part here with this couple, there's no way out. There's no way out that's pretty. But why is there no way out? It's because they didn't do the math before, okay, before disaster strike. Now, some people say, well, but you can't count on disaster. That is true. And to a certain extent, we cannot live our life, okay, assuming that disaster is going to happen to a certain extent. But come on, when we're talking about student loans, and this is in 2023, okay, so everybody knows at this point what's going on with student loans, okay, and I've said it many times. We're not going to get away much more than through Gen Z, and that's about it. Gen Alpha is not going to be able to say, but everybody told us to go to college, and everybody said it would work. Nah. Too many channels like myself and other channels exist to tell you don't buy into that. Okay, millennials are the only people who have full 110% excuse to say that, yeah, they were told to go. But everybody else, okay, Gen Alpha, you don't get that excuse. Of course, they're still in school and they're not really listening on this channel. But give them time. They will join this channel as well. And here's the thing. You got $300,000 and everything they've done, whether it's they've already taken out some money in retirement accounts. They're looking at, and the hit on Social Security is huge. Absolutely. Let me give you an idea of how big it is. My Social Security is supposed to be somewhere, I think around, for me, because I remember, by the way, I remember the Social Security site. It's free. You can see, and you can kind of get a projection. If I take it out after age 70, I'm not sure if I'm going to wait that long, but if I were, it would be well over 3,000, something like 3,200. If I take out 67, I want to say it falls somewhere around 2,800, give or take 100 right there. But if I take it out at 62, it's a huge drop, and drops to something like just a little over 2,000. The penalty is huge to take Social Security early. And to me, the only way you should ever take it is an absolute, you cannot work ever again. The problem is student loan debt, okay, this Parent Plus debt that they can't go bankrupt on. It's not because they can't ever work again. It's because they did not do the math before they took out the loan. And like I was saying, true, things like the pandemic and stuff, nobody planned for that. But there is something that we can plan for. We could plan for, and this is how I bought my condo for $100,000 versus buying a $200,000 condo, which would have given me a very nice upgrade. And it looked like I was living in a townhouse instead of an apartment. Okay. I mean, it's all apartments to some extent. Okay. I actually imagine before I bought this place, what would happen if my income cut in half? What could I afford? What would I be able to afford if they said, Carrie, you're going from 60,000 down to 30,000. Now, at the time that I bought my condo, I was like at 55,000 respectively, a little under 55,000. Okay. So I thought, okay, what would happen if I got my income cut down to say $25,000? What, excuse me, what could I live on? And that is why I bought $100,000 place versus a $200,000 place. Now then, and this couple here taking out $300,000 in debt, okay, for their two children. God, that's an astronomical amount of school. Nobody went to community college. $300,000 for two kids. What did they do? Here's what they should have done. Okay, we want to take out $300,000. Let's say something really bad happened. One of us had to go out of work. We had a 50% income loss. Maybe we should only take out $150,000 and tell the kids, hey, kids, guess what? We're not spending $300,000 in your education. Sometimes I think parents live vicariously through their kids as to going to these luxury schools. I'm sorry, if two kids cost you $300,000, they went to some pretty name brand or private, out of state, yada, yada schools. Sometimes I think parents live vicariously through, well, I didn't go to school, so you can go ahead and go to school. And they either lay the whole student loan bill on their child, who then, winds up being on TikTok later crying about how they've got all the student loan debt because their parents told them to go to school. Or their parents, in this particular case, okay, they take the debt on themselves, and now they're finding themselves so they can't retire. There is no pretty picture out of here. And the only picture that I see is they live on one person's income, the other person works, and they do nothing for maybe the next 15 years to pay off this debt. And think about how old they are also. Okay. Two kids of college age. We have to avoid this. And this is how come some people would say something like, well, the big, beautiful bill is good because it makes it so that parents can't do this anymore, because the limit on the big, beautiful bill is $65,000. That is now the limit. These $300,000 limits can't happen anymore. But again, and I recognize it, okay? The question becomes, well, how come only the rich can go to college? Because life ain't fair. I wasn't born rich. My parents weren't born rich. And most of you guys out there weren't born rich. God bless you if you were, okay? All right, so that's that story. Let us move on to the next story. I'm just skimming through. And I'm not, guys, this is like casual. We're going to do this like casual style. I don't want to have to go through and edit all this stuff. This is casual, informal morning chat while you're having your coffee and stuck in the freeway somewhere. But seriously, I would like to know if you guys do enjoy listening to these type of stories. If I get, oh my God, Carrie, that was the worst thing you ever did was bring up these stories, I'd be like, ooh, okay, I won't do that again. But thumbs up or something just to kind of give me some feedback. Let me know. Okay. Here's the next story. And I'm just skimming these along with you guys. All right. This was July 2023. I am 70 years old and I returned to school in my 40s. I took out school loans. I graduated in 1996. I consolidated them and they were sold or transferred from Gold Financial to AES, where they now sit. I have not missed any payments and I continue to pay them during COVID as AES offered nothing and I was working. I believe my loans are in FFEL. I was unemployed and applied for forbearance and the interest was of course tacked on to the end. In short, I think I borrowed 45,000 plus or minus. If I go under the consolidation under IDR, that's income driven repayment, then the balance, which is now 24K, goes up to 31K with no confirmation. I fall under this plan, which it appears that I would. Federal aid says they can't confirm it if I will get written off. And I obviously don't want to tack on another 7K. I've been paying them down as I've gotten a decent contract job. My original loans were with Citibank. Can you help? Remember, they're writing to Student Debt Crisis Center. Should I do an income-driven repayment? I am working rather than retire so I can pay them off. I too figure I will die before the loan is over. I want to get to a better rate than at Citizens, but they said my estate or relatives would have to pay, so I left them where they are. Thank you. Okay. Ooh, kind of a lot to unpack here. Okay, so again, this is from July 2023. The person is 70 years old. He returns to school in his 40s. So we're going to kind of, do what I do and like do on this channel. We like to break things apart. I can tell you, having returned to school at 36, okay, based 34, 35, and 36 is when I returned to school, got my 2 master's degrees. Guys, I am telling you from carrying student loans for 16 years, do not go to school in your later years. And yes, in terms of student loan debt, if you are going into student loan debt that you cannot pay off in 5 or a simple 10 years. I mean, like simple, it's $300 a month, 10 years. We all good. Okay. A lot of people, I mean, not everybody, but $300 compared to it's $1,700 a month. It's $850 a month. Okay. Going to school in your later years, I have learned from my experience can be very financially risky. And if the company you are working for is not paying for you to go to school and give you a promotion, okay, whether they're paying for your school in part or in full, but giving you a promotion so you're not having to, gather up student loan debt, I really, really think it's risky to go to school in your later years on borrowed debt. And I know people have done it and they're in some serious 6-figure debt. Only reason my debt got wiped out after 16 years because I'm a teacher for PSLF. That's the only reason my debt got wiped out. Otherwise, I would have retired with it. Okay. So that's the first thing, going out in school in your 40s. He graduated in 1996. Okay. How many of you were not even born yet in 1996? Raise your hand in the back. All right. So we acknowledge these debts have been around for a long time. Okay. Over 20 years, almost 20 years. Yeah. 96 and 16. My God. Okay. I consolidated them and they were sold or transferred. Let's see here. He's not missed any payments. Do we recognize what the problem is? Family? Does it matter if you've not missed any payments? No. I thought I said it really well the other day. Okay. When you make these minimum payments, and clearly he has, because he's had these suckers since 1996. Okay. So he's going on, Jesus, 25 plus years for having these loans. Okay. I said to you, when you pay less than the minimum payment, in other words, you pay less so that you cannot go through the interest into the principal. Okay. So your loan is $800 a month for 10 years. And you go, no, I can't pay $800 a month. Please knock it down. And they say, okay, fine. We'll give you $300. And they go, great. I can breathe a sigh of relief. What you're paying for is you're paying to sit on your loan. And then what happens is you see 7-10 years goes by, or even 5 years goes by. And you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. My balance hasn't gone down, but I've been paying every month. I will preach it till the cows come home. I will preach. Okay. I will preach it until, what is it, Dr. Umar Johnson actually builds that boys' school that he keeps saying that he's going to do. Yeah, I thought about talking about that on this channel. I'm still debating it. Okay. But for those of you who are in the know, okay, I'd be preaching this a long time. He's tried to build that school for the last 15 years. All right. It doesn't matter, guys, if you are not paying. to get into the principal significantly. What you are paying for is you are paying to do nothing with your student loan. And how many young people out there, older people out there going, okay, I borrowed $30,000 for school. I did it, 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. And now I've paid the $30,000, but it's all gone to interest. Yes, because what you are doing is you are paying to sit on the loan. Now, that last person we just read about, what was it, 4 or 5 minutes ago? Okay, we just read about that couple and their $300,000 parent plus. Don't you feel like you're having a good morning now? All right. And if you were sipping coffee at the time I said 300,000, hopefully you weren't driving at the same time. It doesn't matter, you guys, if you can't get past that interest. And that's what the first student loan article story I read with that $300,000 couple, and they're finding every way they turn. If they try to pay it off, it's not going to work. This guy's here, been paying on it since 1996. A long time. So he says here he was unemployed and applied for forbearance, and the interest was, of course, tacked on to the end. Yes, the interest is tacked on. Don't forget, if you're on the SAVE plan, your interest started August 1st. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it did. And don't worry, we'll keep track of it, okay? He goes, now this is a classic sentence here. Check out the sentence. He says, in short, I think I borrowed $45K plus or minus. Do we see what the problem is? Somebody tell me. Back row, back row. What's the problem? Who knows? Yes. Only in student loans do we say, I think I borrowed fill in the blank plus or minus. How much you pay for your house? I paid $325,000 and change. Okay. How much you pay for? I paid $26,000 for my car with a 9% interest rate because you weren't shopping real well. Get it down way below, but you get my point. Okay. Good credit, bad credit. Okay. We tend to know what those balances are. But what did you pay for your student loan? Well, I thought I paid $50,000, but then I get my bill and it's actually $85,000, but I didn't bother to look at it because I was just trying to get through graduate school. You see, this is the classic. I highlight it right there. By the way, this print's really light, so I hope it shows up on the computer. Okay. Don't throw the rotten tomatoes if you cannot see the print. This print is really light, and I blew it up as much as I could without distorting everything. Okay. He says, I think I borrowed $45K plus or minus. Do you run your household budget if you are debt free with, I think? No, I know. Matter of fact, when I got this condo, I was so on top of trying to pay this condo off in 3 years versus the 15-year mortgage I had. And again, I do give credit for my parents for paying, their inheritance left me money to be able to fix it up and stuff. So, and I've always been very open and honest about that. Okay. But I still had to put in $50,000 and I still worked really hard. Okay. To knock it out in 3 years. Okay. But I knew exactly how much I paid in interest. I knew exactly where I was on the amortization schedule. I mean, to the point that I had like on a piece of paper and I color coded everything because you see, bills that we are not afraid of, they're the bills that we can face. Let me repeat that. Bills that we are not afraid of. They are the bills that we have the ability to face. We can look it in the eye, shake hands, make friends, figure out how to get rid of it. But that doesn't happen with student loans. And the reason it doesn't happen with student loans, one of a multitude of reasons, of course, too many to list, is the fact that we don't pay attention to the student loan bill. We go and get the education with all the hopes and dreams. Okay. We're going to be the first in the family. Or if we're not first in the family, we're the first to get the medical degree, lawyer degree, teaching degree, whatever. We're the first musician. But we don't look at what the degree is going to cost us and how much we're going to make and can the numbers all work. You see? So when he says things like, I borrowed $45K plus or minus, that feeds perfectly into my idea that we don't pay attention to the bill as it runs up. It's really sad because we get so hard on people out. Oh my God, you spend $18,000 on a car and you shouldn't have done that. It's too much car. That's $18,000 compared to the sucker. What is it? The last couple, $300,000 for their student loan. Sometimes I think we, not that it's not important to stay in budget with your car. It is, but sometimes I think we pay attention to things that don't matter as much. I'm less concerned about your car payment that you purchased in the teens, even if you should have gotten yourself a hoopty, okay, for like $5,000-6,000. I'm more concerned about your student loan bill. But you see, it's easier to face a car or an overpriced house because they tend to be more fun in the long run. Hey, beautiful house to live in, or my case, a little apartment here style place to live in, but it's a roof over my head. All right. It's easier to face the things that have more enjoyment. I can decorate it. I can add things to it. Okay. What can you do with the student loan after you graduate? Oh, and what can you do with the student loan after you graduate and you don't even work in that freaking degree that you majored in? See, remember what I've told you, that new car smell goes away very quickly on the student loan bill. This whole thing he has here about trying to transfer the loan, consolidate the loan, and all of that. He's pretty much straight up honest about that. Yeah, don't forget, guys, when you consolidate the loan, the bill goes up. And now with the SAVE plan clearly kicked out the door, I don't think it's all dead yet, but we know it's dead. Okay, the big beautiful bill passed, so I think it's SAVE plan only in name. Okay, so I think in this particular case, when he says his loans were with Citibank, should he do income driven repayment? But what do we know about income driven repayment, people? Sure, we can all do income driven repayment, and you're going to be writing on here 5 years from now wondering how come your bill doesn't go down. I don't want to see anybody in my audience taking on a debt so much, so big that you can't comfortably pay it off, even if it's 10 years. Like, that's cool. Okay. If you can get where it is you want to go and pay it off in 10 years, totally comfortable. All right. Then go for it. I don't think 10 years is actually unreasonable for a payoff plan. But what's unreasonable is 10 years for a payoff plan that you cannot afford to pay off, or a payment plan for a degree that you aren't even majoring. I mean, that you aren't practicing in anymore. And it really, demotivates people. I really don't know enough about whether or not this guy should go on income driven repayment, all of that stuff. So, but I just want you to see his situation. July 23. July 23. I did that intentionally because who's that guy? Dr. Umar Thurman repeats everything 3 times. July 2023. Oh, play with me. Here we go. A formal higher education used to be esteemed for an individual to become an educated, contributing citizen. But now, with the inflated cost of it, a significant population of young adults are opting out of college degrees and finding alternate education and migrating to other countries to make a decent living. I am 49-year-old male, head of household with wife and 2 kids. One is a teenager. I have a master's degree and still have a high amount of student loan debt hanging over me and my household. It is the only significant debt I have and makes it difficult to acquire or necessary loans for an investment in my family's future. An education should be our right to have, especially for young people just trying to survive. It's robbing kids financially, the student loan debt, and the soaring inspired feeling of obtaining a higher education. We should be helping our citizens prosper, not allow financial institutions to debilitate our growth. Okay. Do what's right, counsel, student loan debt. Okay, let's make this very clear. Unless you're in public service or some area that can be canceled, your debt's not going to be canceled. And yes, I understand it should be. The problem is it's never going to be, again, unless you're in like an approved PSLF program. And as we know, a lot of the PSLF prior qualified or jobs, organizations, whatever, are being dequalified. And there really isn't enough news on that right now that I really have discussed it on this channel. But, we'll keep our eyes open on it. And I do have people who send me, news and bits of information from time to time. Thank you, Jamie. Okay. Whenever they see something kind of interesting. But one of the things is that a lot of, for those who may not know, jobs that were once under the Biden administration and prior Biden, Obama, whatnot, okay, were considered jobs that were available to be forgiven are now being re-looked at and basically yanked out of forgiveness. I don't know enough about this point to really make a comment, but I do know that is happening. And I've told you the best way to find out if your employer is PSLF is to go to the FAFSA website. There is a section there where you can type in the employer ID number. Okay, I work for Hillsborough County School District. Their employer ID number appears on my W-2 form, and you can actually go in and look that up and type in their ID number. And if the employer ID number does not show up, it means as of that date and time, they are not recognized by the IRS as a PSLF approved organization. Now, does that mean that, there could be an error perhaps, and maybe they are? Yes. Okay. I'm not an attorney. I don't give legal advice. So you're still going to have to probably do your own follow-up. But I do know that if you type in Hillsborough County School District and you type in the employer identification number, it pops right up. Some jobs are better for PSLF than others. Okay, teaching, okay, state cheat teaching is pretty solid for PSLF. It's a state job. Gotta be careful though when you start going into private education and stuff, because if it's a for-profit organization, it most likely does not qualify for PSLF. Same thing if it may be a nonprofit, but if it's a political nonprofit, that can also keep it from being qualified for PSLF. So this guy here is 49 years old, 2 kids, and doesn't really feel like he can survive. How many people, if they could get rid of their student loans right now, they would be debt free? Like totally debt free. If you have student loan debt and you feel comfortable putting in the comments, okay, we don't share, nobody reads the comments except those of us that read the comments, okay? So it'll be private. Just those of us that read the comments will see it. But those of you who do have student loan debt, if you were to get rid of your student loan debt, would you actually be debt free? Now, we're not talking about, we understand you pay your taxes and all of that stuff. We get that. That's your everyday lifelong bills. But in general, okay, it's like the student loan debt is the only thing that's hanging over my head. All right, continuing on. Shall we continue on, folks? We're at 30-minute mark. Let's continue reading another story. This gal writes, let me see here. This is July 2023. I guess maybe they stopped posting on this page in July 2023. All right, here we go. I attended Almeida Technical College around age 20. Hundreds and hundreds of students were promised job placement when their courses were completed. Many students I know completed their course, but instead of job placement, we were sent to a temporary agency for job employment. Today, I'm 53 years old with the same loans that have crippled me financially for most of my life. The student loan system is designed to cripple the majority of its applicants. I have a solution or plan B to pay back student loans, but that can also reduce the U.S. deficit in record time. I just need assistance. Okay, so she was 20 years old. She's 53, and she has her loans. I had my first student loan officially for payment when I was 38. That was in 2006, because that's the year I became a teacher, and I was supposed to keep it till the age of 62, paying $500 a month. This, young people, is what you need to be careful of. And let's think about it. The big, beautiful bill, 30-year payment, I believe is now coming up. You can have that bill from the age of 20 to 50, respectively. And then, so you're going to tell me that you're going to wait till you're in your 50s before you start to save for retirement, before you start to invest. And I know people go, oh, you know what? I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to invest anyways. Darn the student loan. I will attach at the end the story I did not too long ago. It was just a couple days ago, when it was about the gal who decided that she was going to get herself into a she has a $307,000 student loan, and she has a $375,000 house. Basically, she decided after 36 months, she wasn't going to take on the student loan anymore. She was tired of that. House is more exciting. And she went and she bought herself a $375,000 house. In the time that she's had that student loan, since approximately 2016, respectively, she bought the house in 2019. The house has gone down $35,000. The student loan amount is up to $307,000. You know what she initially borrowed? You want to know what she initially borrowed? You're going to have to watch the end. I'll attach at the end. You can find out how much she initially borrowed, but you'll be absolutely in shock. Yes, I have to put a teaser in there somewhere, but I will attach it to the end. It just played a couple days ago. This is what should scare every young person and every older person. Okay, 40s and up, and you're like, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go to school and take out a whole bunch of debt that I can't afford. And you can pay out for 40 years. That puts you, respectively, if you take it out, let's say you take it out 40, you're going to be paying on that sucker till you're 70. Do you see the problem? And, I know there's going to be somebody out there who goes, I don't care if I have to pay out for 20, 30 years. You're going to care at some point. Trust me, you will care. Someday you're going to want to do something other than just pay on the student loans. I'm telling you, watch that. I will attach it to the end. Her bill went up to $307,000. That's all I'm going to say. It's worth it. And I've heard the commentary is outstanding. All right. Work with me, people. All right, here we go. Another June 2023. I'm telling you, I think maybe they don't post here anymore. Okay, here we go. I am retired and being laid off 3 years ago. My student loan debt will probably outlive me. Since being retired, I'm living on Social Security and a small pension from my employer. I sign up for the reduced income program placement plan. I must reapply every year. Navient and Advantage always seem to have a problem with what I send to them verifying my income, and I usually have to call them to ask them what the problem is. They so far have accepted what I send them, as I have nothing else to provide. I could really use a reduction in my debt. However, I just keep plugging away with no end in sight. I didn't take the loan payment postponements and have been paying them steadily in spite of the option of suspending the payments. Taking these loans out was one of the biggest mistakes of my life as I didn't earn a degree. The legal internship was not an option that I could explore with my employer. That was a blow. Wow. Um, Lemon, he's retired. He's living on Social Security and a small pension. Small tells me it's maybe not more than a couple $100 a month. And for those of you getting any bright ideas going, well, I'm going to go ahead and go to my dream school and I'm just not going to pay my student loan and they can just take out the 15% when I retire. You got to remember something. The government isn't going to wait till you retire. They're just going to garnish your wages, and garnish them they will. So let's get that idea out of our head, because trust me, there is not an idea that you had about how to escape your student loans that somebody else hasn't come up with, including myself, and tried. Okay. Now, I've never had a wage garnishment and I've never been in default, thank God. Okay. But you just got to keep in mind, for those of you who are thinking, well, it's not so bad, just let them take it out when you retire. They're going to garnish it first. And also keep in mind, when you retire, guys, every penny is going to matter. And even as little as $200 a month is going to Social Security. Guys, that could literally be your electric bill. It could be what ties you over, for transportation needs. Yeah, you may not drive, but you might need Uber to get to the doctor's appointment. In other words, every penny counts. I mean, I know it counts when we're working, but when we're working, hopefully we are replenishing our income coffers. Not so much when we're retired. All right, let's continue on. This one, I just got to read this. Another June 2023. Is anybody with me still on this? Anybody? I know we're 36 minutes in. Maybe you could throw in the comments like with you or something. Is anybody out there? All right, well, we're going to continue on. For those of us that just enjoy the banter, sometimes it's just fun to banter. I enjoy it. All right. I'd been repaying my student loans with Sallie Mae under the income-based repayment plan since 1995. Okay, so they've been paying this under income-based since 1995. Oh, we already know where this is going. Remember, I'm reading these for the first time with you guys. Yes, I like to do it with you guys. I think it's more fun. My loans were sold to Navient in 2011. I called Navient to find out about getting them discharged, because I found out that under the IBR, the loans could be discharged after paying for 25 years. Navient told me they're only counting them from 2011. Can they do that? Yes, they can do that. They absolutely can. Navient can do whatever they want. See, here's the problem, guys. We like to go, can they do that? Can they charge me 17% for a car, for a student loan, for a house, whatever? Yes, they can do that. You signed for it. Can they really, car shark me like that? Can they really do that to my student loan bill? Yes, they can. I know part of the reason we say that is that's our way of saying we can't believe that. We're just like in total shock. I'm totally aware of that. But there's also an ounce of hope that maybe they're breaking the law. They're a private student loan company. They can do whatever they want. And you've heard me say, that's why I call it student loan sharking. There's car sharking and then there's student loan sharking. Okay, that's student loan sharking. So he's been paying. So just for those who might have been multitasking while we were reading this, okay, he would have had his student loans discharged. He got 1995. His loans were sold to Navient in 2011. He's paid on it for 25 years, but they're only counting debt from counting the loans in 2011. You have to remember, the reason they do that is it's not financially possible to excuse every single person that ever borrowed a loan. Let's think about that. That's not. I mean, and even though we may not like banks and businesses and all that, banking, but not businesses in general, but we don't really care for private student loan banks, okay? Navient, Sallie Mae, all that stuff, okay? Nelnet. We have to remember, it is not logical to say, yes, everybody gets it. Instead, they also have to look at changes in laws and stuff. And that's why there's usually a specific date, because that's the date that, a law changed. So if you were in that law before 2011, you're under that old law, and only the new ones past 2011. It's kind of like being a teacher, and when Rick Scott became governor, okay, there was a lot of changes to teachers here in Florida. And the big date was, I believe, July 2011. It's either June or July. I think it's July 2011 was a really big date. And people who were hired summer of 2011 and beyond are on the new retirement plan, and people who were before 2011 are on the older retirement plan. And then based on when you were hired, it's all of that. So when they sit and say, can they do that? Yes, they absolutely can do that. I know it wasn't being asked maybe literally, but it is that shock of, oh my God, I could have had it forgiven if I'd had it after 2011. The ones that really kill you, the ones who got it just like maybe, weeks or days before and you don't qualify. It is what it is. Continuing on. I returned to school. Oh, there's a new story, June 2023. Everybody say 2023. Okay. I returned to school in 1992 at the age of 31. I attended a community college, which was paid by Pell Grants. When I graduated, I continued to a university to earn my BA. I did this because of the previous 10 plus years I had to take jobs that didn't pay enough. And I tried to be promoted to other departments, but I was not even allowed because I only had a high school diploma. I wanted better for my kids, so I took a huge risk. I went back to school. I earned my BAE and taught for over 20 years. Okay, so teaching. I've been trying to have PSLF credit my account for years, and I'm still waiting for the Department of Education to update their system so that my account should reflect 120 payments and I can receive PSLF. Oh my goodness. And this 19 here's the thing with PSLF, you guys, you have to also look at for public service loan forgiveness. It's the counting doesn't start until it's consolidated. And this is why it's really important. If you're wanting PSLF, you don't just sit and wait and go, oh, I got 6 months to, goof off and I'll get to the consolidation later. And you're making those monthly payments thinking those are counting towards 120. They don't count towards 120 until they are consolidated. Okay, now this person wrote a poem. Now the question is, should we or should we not read the poem? Vote. I think we should read the poem. Okay. I mean, we've only been chatting here for 41 minutes. All right. Meanwhile, I wrote a poem to share my feelings. All right. We are not going to do commentary during the poem. We are just going to read the poem as this person has written it. And again, I am reading for this for the first time with you. Here we go. My student loans. And I'll try to read it somewhat like a poet, but keep in mind, I'm reading this for the first time. Okay. My student loans. They have been with me to have and to hold since 1993, for better or worse. Oh, dear God. For richer or poor, in sickness or in health, to have and to hold until death do us part. They have been with me through the relationships, 2 divorces, 4 children, 3 teaching jobs, and a lot of side jobs. They have been with me through having my gallbladder removed, polyps from my colon removal, and cataract surgery. In 2006, my husband left me while I was pregnant. Oh. And I had to claim bankruptcy, but my student loans didn't leave me. They stayed with me the whole time. They have been with me through my kids' high school graduations and college graduations. They have been with me through my daughter's wedding and later my daughter's divorce. They have been with me when my son joined the military, and they were also there when he was in a bad motorcycle accident with 3 broken ribs, broken shoulders, and a torn spleen. I'm so sorry about that. My student loans have been with me through the death of both of my parents. They were there when the pandemic occurred and I had to take an early retirement or to be laid off after working at the college for 16 years. My student loans have been there when I worked and when I was unemployed. In 3 months, I will be 62 and I'm eligible for Social Security. And I know they will be there for me too. I've been a loyal partner, my payments every month on time for almost 30 years. You would think my student loans would lose their interest in me after such a long time. But no, I can always count on them to add more and more interest to my life. And in fact, my student loans have accumulated more than when I started them 30 years ago. I am so lucky. Although I'm graying, my knees and elbows sometimes they can crack. My eyesight is not what it used to be. A magnifying glass helps. And it's difficult to find work at my age. I do have the knowledge that unless something happens, my student loans will always be there for me.